All right, I think we're live. Matt,
We're
let's
live.
let's
We're
let's
here.
bring it
It's
in.
happening.
Yes, it
All
is.
right. Well, it's Wednesday. It's a very special Wednesday. Thank you so much if you're showing up here live to join us for the rollout of our very special new program here at SPI, and specifically within SPI Pro, our Expert in Residence program. So let me just give a shout out. It's Terry, it's Jason. The four of us together are getting this thing off the ground as the EIRs. So Terry, Jason, how are you guys today?
Both of
Doing
us are
well.
waiting
Glad
for
to
the
be
other one to
here.
speak. Apparently, I'm great.
That's awesome. There's maybe a little bit of a delay. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for showing up. We're excited to share this really important new vision and program, that we're rolling out here. It's really going to redefine how we think about helping entrepreneurs with their small business, and really be with them every step of the way as they pursue their own path towards sustainability with whatever business model, with whatever goals that you guys are building towards, getting folks in the room into our community like Terry, like Jason, and so many more amazing people that we're going to be recruiting into our EIR private network inside the SPI Pro community next year. It's going to be a game changer for what we're able to do as Pat has always done, even from the very beginning of SPI, which is to lead by example, to really come together as people just doing the work almost in public as much as we can. We're just now going to do it more in private inside the safety and the walls of our SPI Pro community. So that's what this whole EIR program is about. We're gonna have a loose fireside chat today with Terry, with Jason, and do some other fun things. We'll get a pro community member to sit on a hot seat for a little bit. So that's what's coming up today. Pat, do
Yeah,
you want to
it's
chime in?
it's November 29th. We have about a month until 2024, which is kind of bonkers. And we aren't just talking the talk; we're walking the walk too. The EIR program is a part of our initiative in 2024 to refocus and to get better, streamlined stuff to our audience and serve them even better. And I know that's exactly what the guys here are doing as well. And that's why we're here to encourage you to do the same. And we're going to talk about a lot of that. And how we might go about doing that for all of our businesses, whether you are a solopreneur or you have a team, doesn't matter. There's a lot of things we can do to have better goals and reach those goals next year. So, yeah, that's the program today, and we're excited that you're here. Thank you again, chat,
Yeah.
and feel free to shout out where you're from and where you're watching in from in the chat, and introduce. There's a lot of people already introducing themselves to each other, which is great. We also have a few members from Team SPI here as well in the chat. We have Heather and Sandy, and I think Kelsey's in there as well. So thank you for supporting, and let's do this.
Yeah. So Terry's going to lead our conversation here in just a little bit about the Refocus Challenge itself. I know you guys are really excited to learn more about that. That's going to be the very first thing that we all do together as EIRs inside of the SPI Pro community. Before we get there, just a quick moment that's not the entirety of what the EIR program is meant to be. On the regular, Jason, Terry, and all the amazing experts, again, that will be recruiting and that will be joining us, next year, they're inside the community, along with all of us every day. Terry is there, Jason is there to lend comments, to your questions. They'll be in due course, even hosting their own office hour events and showing up to others' private events. So it really is a comprehensive sort of an approach to really weaving together experts from different disciplines, different backgrounds, all together. The composition of what it means to build and run a really healthy and sustainable small business. That's what we're doing, and it's the challenge that is really kind of kicking it off for us. So, but yeah, that's maybe oversharing or overbaking a little bit here, on the front end. Jason, let's start with you. I'd love to just even know if you want to share a little bit, maybe just your background, if people maybe haven't come across your work quite yet, and why you're so excited to have joined us here in this EIR program.
Yeah, well, so thanks, Matt, Pat, Terry. Always great to be with you. Hey, everybody. I'll answer this in a couple different ways. I know that this isn't just a sales pitch for SPI. I think we're all here because we just love connecting with entrepreneurs, with creators, making sure that we are sharing our knowledge and we're building that amazing community. SPI is an amazing community. It's why I'm so excited to be a part of it. So I'll answer that, but I also just want to share some thoughts. As Pat said, we're very close to the end of the year, which means that we all should be thinking about what did we accomplish this year and what are we thinking about for next year. That's something that's really on my mind. So I want to share a bit about how I'm thinking about that. And guys, I'm really curious to hear what it is that you are doing to refocus, to make sure that you are setting yourselves up personally and with the business to think about how to make next year even stronger. For me, the way that I think about it has really led me to being here. I like to think, first of all, not about outcome, but about action. So every year when I'm setting goals, I'm thinking about the actions, not about the outcome. The reason for that is simple because the actions are controllable in a way that the outcomes aren't. I can't say I will earn this amount of money. I cannot say I will gain this amount of followers. I have some control over that. I will do what I can to reach that goal, but I don't want to measure myself and my success against that outcome necessarily. What I instead want to do is measure it against action. Am I taking the right actions towards those goals? Am I giving myself the permission to shift and adjust as I maybe recognize new opportunities along the way? So this year for me personally, some things that I thought about were I wanted to make sure that I was really fully establishing my purpose and my value offering to an audience, which meant being incredibly clear about what it was that I had to offer. I felt like last year I was getting there, but I didn't have all the language that I wanted. I hadn't refined it fully. And then I also wanted to make sure that I was connecting with the right people and the right organizations and putting myself in place to create the kinds of products and be in the right environments to make sure that I was really like maximizing that. Part of that was a newsletter that I spent the year building. And another part of that is joining you all here at SPI, because what I get to see by doing this is how great communities operate and what entrepreneurs need. And I get to refine my own understanding of how I'm useful to them. That's a big reason why I'm here. It's not just to deliver value, but it's because great experiences, when you put yourself into the situations where you have to be useful to others and you are receiving questions and needs and you're in front of customers or partners, that's when you put yourself in a position to really refine yourself. And so that was what I set out to do. That's the action that I focused on. Next year, I want to make sure that I'm really growing it in what I think are like smart operational ways. So again, being here at SPI is really important to me because I get to see what community looks like. I get to be a part of building that community, of building this EIR program. Over on some of the other things that I'm doing, my newsletter, I just launched a premium version of the newsletter, and now I'm all about trying to optimize that and understand what that product should look like. And then, of course, over at Entrepreneur, where I'm the editor-in-chief, we're doing that at an organizational level too, where we're thinking about the different content that we're providing and the different ways in which we're reaching people and the different programs that we can be doing with advertisers. And so I want to make sure that if this year was all about refinement, then next year is all about execution. And I think when you think about your years episodically like that, you give it a theme and then you set some actions towards that theme, that's when you're really able to grow.
That's very well said. Thank you. Man. Outstanding.
A lot of the chat's resonating with that, Jason, especially the action versus outcome orientation. And there's a lot of love for your newsletter, by the way, from a lot of the people there. So just shout out to you,
everybody. I really appreciate that.
And all that you offer.
Terry, that's a high bar. You have to clear it. So yeah, would love to hear your story and what you're thinking about as the new year is on the horizon.
Yeah, I'm wishing I went first, but that was taken. So I'm a father. I have 4 children at home, and as a result of that, everything I do is on the side. So what do? I write for Entrepreneurial magazine as a result of meeting Jason about 6 years ago while we were bringing our kids to an event. I also have a podcast called Launch Your Business, where I help other entrepreneurs avoid the mistakes I made when I started my business. Also a content creator and a keynote speaker. But before all that, I worked in corporate like a lot of you. I worked at Adobe as well as Facebook as a digital marketing consultant. And they were great roles. But I remember one time speaking to my manager and thinking, I don't want your job or anyone else's job here, including mine. And that's when I realized I wasn't really meant to be in corporate. I enjoyed the aspect of working, especially in marketing, but corporate just wasn't for me. So in 2015, I left and I started my own company where I was providing digital marketing services. But unfortunately, I had no clue how to do anything but digital marketing. I had no clue how to run a business, how to get clients, how to price, all that stuff. And it was embarrassing for me because I went to business school. So for years, I'm like, I have an MBA, so on and so forth. I'm so smart. And when it was time for me to apply it to my own business, I just couldn't do it. So one way that I found a path forward was through teaching at a school called General Assembly, which some of you might have heard of before. And I was teaching digital marketing classes there. And that was beneficial for a few reasons. One is I was just getting peppered with questions day after day by people who were eager to learn. And I didn't always have the answers, but I got better, first of all, pivoting when I didn't know the answer. And then second of all, finding it so I could actually provide value. So I got so much stronger in regards to my expertise because I was getting peppered by unique questions on a regular basis. But something else happened, and this is what really attracted me to SPI is the community that was there was just phenomenal. I would hear the most interesting conversations in the elevator about people building great businesses, great products, and hearing how they supported each other was really important for me too, right? Because you might have a problem this week, someone else has it next week, and all of a sudden you're supporting them. You become the teacher very quickly. And with SPI, that's what I'm already seeing inside of there. Even as a member, I remember I put up a post asking a question, and someone I didn't even know, some random person replied with a lot of help and even reached out to me on LinkedIn saying, here's some additional resources as well. So that's when I knew this was the community for me and almost gave me an opportunity to go back to how I started my business and how I built my business through community, doing so online now. So that's why I'm so excited to share. And then beyond that, I don't get out much. So being able to interact within the community is actually my form of socialization. So I block off time every day to go ahead and interact with people because I don't have much going on outside of going to the gym and raising my kids. So that's why I'm glad to be here. And going back to what Jason was saying in regards to the cleanse, it's so important, and I'll get into that more later. But every year I have this evaluation where I think to myself, what do I want to do, become, experience, learn, and sacrifice in order to make next year even better? And that sacrifice part goes along with the cleanse. So I'm looking forward to sharing that with you as well.
That's outstanding.
Hey, Matt, before you move, I just want to add something to what Terry said, because Terry, I loved what you just said there, and what you were saying about finding the thing you're really good at and optimizing for that made me think about a conversation I literally just had yesterday with the CEO or the incoming CEO of Taco Bell. He starts January 1st as the CEO of Taco Bell, and I'd asked him what it's like transitioning into a big role for the first time, and he said he got some really incredible advice, and that was, you don't have to be these are his words. You don't have to be a black belt in everything. Just know what you're a black belt in, and then make sure that you find the black belts in everything that you're not amazing at and just put them in positions to succeed. But optimize for the thing that you're amazing at and don't try to spread yourself into the things that you're not. Him, for example, he comes from marketing and brand leading. His name is Sean, and so that's where he's gonna say, I'm excellent at this, and I'm gonna make sure that I'm finding people who are excellent at that other thing. And that is something that I think we should be building into the way that we think about years, which is to say, every year we get a little more information about the thing that we're really, really excellent about, and also information about the things that maybe we're not so excellent about. This year, for example, as I was building the newsletter that I'm so thrilled that people in the comments are complimenting, I realized something, which is I'm really excellent at communicating. I'm really bad at product building. I just am. I'm a bad product builder. And so I've started having conversations towards the end of this year with potential partners who can just help me understand the product better, who can maybe take some of that product building off of my hands so that grows better. And I get to reclaim some of the energy that I've been putting into that and put it towards the thing that I'm excellent at. Because it's like my energy could either be put towards something that'll be 50% good, or it could be put towards something that's 100% great. And so I want to think about that and give myself the permission to be bad at things and say there are other people who can be better at them. I think that's something that is worth thinking about at the end of a year. What are you excellent at? And how can you spend next year being incredibly excellent at it and devoting even more time to it by figuring out how to find other people who can take on some of the things that you're not excellent at, because that's okay.
Yeah, I think that's critical. Jason, that even maps really well to your newsletter from this week, where you told part of the story of like Netflix, right? And how they, right. Those co-founders kind of, worked out some transition stuff to really kind of unlock their growth potential, right? To me, what I think kind of sings there, and it's true for us, where like community is product for us, more than ever now at SPI, is the classic and I think timeless advice that you are the average of the people you surround yourself with, right? So if you surround yourself with great people to bounce ideas off of, ask smart questions, get some good answers back, and then kind of the happy accidents that can kind of arise that are kind of the magic of learning and development and discovering new possibilities, for yourself as a person, as a professional, for your business. I think that's all kind of, at least in my interpretation, Jason, of kind of, your thoughts there. Very much aligned with, certainly the spirit that we have at SPI, what we're further imbuing, into our communities, in large part with the thanks of you guys and everyone else that we're going to bring into the fold next year. Pat, how does all that strike you? And what do you think?
I'm listening to Jason and Terry and you, Matt, and I'm just so proud of us, and actually very proud of me. Like, I think a lot of us need to be more proud of ourselves, and I don't often do that because I'm always trying to serve others. And just to know that for the first 7 years of SPI, it was just me, and I could never have imagined handing off anything to anybody else. Yet, Jason, when you talked about not being a black belt and everything, I tried to be that. I am actually a black belt in Taekwondo, but I was like 14, so I lost everything. But in business, I tried to be a black belt in everything, and eventually realized that I'm good at a lot of things, and I'm good at sharing the things that I know, but I only know what I know. And this is why this community and everything that we're building now is just, I'm so happy with this direction, because this is the first time I'm getting to chat here. All three of you were here first, providing so much value, and it's to the same audience that I want to serve, like I have been serving. And you have a lot more expertise than I do about certain things, and together, like, just imagine what this group can do together to serve others in this community. And this is just the beginning, because we have more EIRs coming, and it's just going to be amazing what we're turning this into. And that's a big focus for us in 2024, and it starts here. And so I couldn't be more proud, couldn't be more happy with Terry and Jason on board, and Matt and who I know is coming as well. So anyway, I just wanted to say that, because that's like the thing that came to mind. Just better together. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Yeah. And even highlights a really important point as well. I'm thrilled you even went there, Pat, which is, the roadmap of experts, that we're going to bring in, very intentionally are recruiting for diversity in every idea and manifestation of that term. Business discipline. So we're building a network, this EIR network, into this community, where then these gaps are being filled. The things that I'm not great at, Jason is maybe great at. The next person we bring in is great at, right? So that all of our members, right, can have that level of access in a way that maybe other communities don't. We're trying to be very special and very distinct in the value and the composition, right, of the diversity of skill and aptitudes that we're bringing into the fold, all for your benefit. Diversity across other aspects of criticality, right? Gender diversity, and I'll acknowledge up front, you're watching 4 guys in a room right now talk, right? Not great, but we have great intention to have amazing women, in our midst. Our next EIR cohort will be coming live in Q1, and we're lining up 3 amazing women to headline when we roll that out in Q1. And then, with other forms of racial and ethnic diversity as well. Like, we're very intentional about bringing these aspects of, life, of character, of principle, right, of skill, business skill, into our community. We will all benefit from that. And it is our guiding purpose, ultimately, all of us together, to champion for that and to work hard. First and foremost, myself, and the responsibility I feel to make that happen for us, to add that diversity into the room.
Amazing.
Awesome. So we're at a really exciting moment, at least for today. One of our amazing pro members has been on standby, because one of the things that we do in the community, as a part of our, I'd say, like, fabric, as a part of our DNA, are hot seats, different opportunities in different ways to really center up our members, their important questions, their critical needs, and really rally around them, right? And try to help out. So we wanted to kind of showcase that today, have a little bit of fun, add some value, especially now, again, with our EIRs in the mix. So Junaid, if you're there, I hope you are. I would love to invite you into the room.
He is right there.
Boom!
There
There
he
he
is.
is.
Junaid, what's up, man?
I'm good. I'm good. So great to be here. Thank you so much for the invite. I'm super excited and gotta
Yeah,
support the
surf
Love
life,
to
surf
share
baby.
it.
culture.
And of course, he
Love
comes
to
on
share
and
it.
blows all of our studios away, right? I
Yeah,
mean, just look at
looking real good.
how great his
Thank you.
studio looks, and that's what he does. I mean, homestudiomastery.com is his business. He helps entrepreneurs and people like you watching this right now have amazing sets and background designs and lighting, and this is something that he's an expert in. I've seen it in person, and he's just a great guy, and he's been a part of the SPI community for so long. So thank you for volunteering to do this and do this live with us. But Matt, why don't you set up the hot seat and kind of what we're going to do, and then obviously we'll let Junaid talk about his business a little bit and ask a question.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Junaid, in just a moment, I'll give you the mic to introduce yourself, your business, what you're all about, and kind of center up the big burning question that you have for all of us. And then we'll just do round robin, and everyone here will have a chance to try to weigh in and help and provide some unique perspective in a way that's actionable and useful to you as you think about wrapping up the year on a strong foot and get ready for hopefully an even better 2024. So yeah, with that, why don't you let everyone know here that's watching a little bit about you and your business.
All right. So my name is Junaid, like lemonade, just for those who don't know how to pronounce that. I started podcasting, and it's actually listening to Flynn for a very long time, as most of us, and it inspired me to start a podcast. I did one in 2012, didn't really go too far, but it wasn't until 2018 when Gary Vee told me, hey, you should just document your journey if you want to start a podcast. So that podcasting journey into beekeeping and podcasting, it was a long story. What it did is it inspired me to go into it head first. And we can spend all the time that we want to try to think, how is this going to work? But until you take that first step, you're not going to know how it's going to happen. Now, luckily or unluckily, the pandemic hit. Now I've been already podcasting, and I saw Pat Flynn do the live streams. I'm like, wow, this is so amazing. It inspired me to then bring in my video production background into my own studio and build this out. And as I was going through this journey, people started noticing the difference in my studio set, and they started asking me questions around it. I was like, hey, I think there's something there. So in 2021 or 2020, ended 2020, I actually launched Home Studio Mastery, where I had started helping other people how to set up their home spaces, how to make sure that their lighting is right, the video, the camera, the audio, everything is tweaked up. And I'm actually celebrating 3 years in November for launching that business, and it's been doing really amazing. I'm super excited to be able to talk about it here and getting ready for the next year, 2024.
That's fabulous. So as you think about next year, maybe doing things differently, maybe your goals are evolving. I'd love to even kind of center that up. Like, what's the big question that we can try to weigh in on, based on how you're thinking about defining success for yourself and your business next year?
Thank you, man. The thing is, right, there's so many different ways that we are told, hey, you should be doing a YouTube channel, you should be doing a podcast, you should be doing, like, there's a lot of shoulds in what somebody should be doing. And my question is, like, how can my business, how can I do some low risk, high reward strategies that a business like mine should consider in 2024 to really shake things up? Because I've done the 5-day challenge, I've done the webinars, I've done the guesting, I've done, one-on-one content and one-on-one creation. The things that I have not done is, launch a YouTube channel and talk all about these things that I'm doing. And I haven't done a lot of those things. So the question is, where should my next focus be on to make sure that 2024 is fire? And of course, those listening here, they can take away from that as well.
Excellent. Terry, could I invite you to maybe swing in first if you have some thoughts for Junaid?
Yeah, it's better than going after Jason. So thanks for sharing that background. I appreciate it. And a few things come to mind. So the first is, I mean, everyone wants to have this online presence, right? They want to look great when they're on camera too. And sometimes it's not the access to the right equipment or the background that's holding them back. It's just feeling comfortable actually speaking to people on camera like we are right now. So one thing I would suggest is having some kind of lead magnet, some kind of content around that, like how to get comfortable on camera and why. Because I had a moment to visit your website and I see that you do have a newsletter, but the call to action is like sign up to get our latest updates, which I'm sure are amazing, but people want to know exactly what they're going to get at that moment instead of saying, oh, I wonder what he's going to send me. So if you had some kind of content that's more upper funnel, like, hey, I know you want to be on camera, here's how to get over the jitters, or here's what to talk about, I feel like that's a really good way to provide value automatically. And if you had content on your website, so I'm talking about your blog now, which I saw briefly, around that topic as well, then you can go on social media and say, hey, there are 5 mistakes people make when they first start doing live streaming. Here's how to avoid, here's mistake number 1. For the other 4, go to my website and download my guide, so on and so forth, right? So now you're using your social presence to get in front of your audience, but also pre-qualifying why you have this valuable information and steering them towards your website where you get them on your email list and continue the process from there. So if you're not doing anything along those lines yet, I would suggest starting there.
I'll plus one that. I'm reminded of Mixergy.com, Andrew Warner, an amazing interviewer. He had a lead magnet created that was essentially 5 ways to look better on a webcam because everybody was appearing on Zoom at the time. And it went viral, and it was great. And with where video is going and live streaming is going, I definitely think that would be a great, easy piece, a 1-page PDF even, something simple, digestible that could just provide immediate value. So I'll plus one that from Terry as well. Updates are great. Newsletters are hot right now, obviously, but still getting people into the new newsletter is going to be a big part of the equation.
That's
I
excellent.
love that. Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah. Well, so first of all, Janae, what's that?
Let me say one more thing. I promise.
Please.
And sorry, Junaid, if you don't already have one, setting up some kind of referral program for your existing customers, I would highly recommend that too, because it's easier to grow through word of mouth. And I saw this stat from Texas Tech University that only 29% of companies have a built-out referral program, yet 80% of people will be happy to refer after a good experience, right? So it's like you got to close that gap by just making it available. And
Awesome.
what I would do is every quarter actually remind your audience, hey, by the way, we have this amazing referral program, just to keep it top of mind with them as well.
I love that. Perfect.
Jason,
all right.
You want to go next?
Yeah, I didn't want to jump in on anything else. So first of all, Junaid, thanks and welcome. And I'm really glad you asked this question. It's a great one for everybody who's watching. And you and I are going to be talking after because I'm currently on the side of my desk, wedged in between this bookshelf and a couch. It's the only place that I can find that's passable in my office, and I want something better. So we're going to talk. So let me tell you a quick story. I have a friend whose name is Rochelle DeVoe, and she is an audience insights researcher. So her job is to go and talk to consumers of a brand, of a creator, and understand them, understand their needs, understand what they like, what they don't like, what's unserved. And she was trying to figure out how to explain her work better. And we were talking about that. And I said, well, can you tell me a story of somebody who you helped? And she said, sure. She told me this story of a company called Vim and Vigor. They make socks, compression socks. Vim and Vigor was started by an athlete who was looking for compression socks that did whatever, I don't know. I'm not an athlete, so I don't know what compression socks are necessary. But anyway, the woman couldn't find it on the marketplace, so decided to make her own, which of course is a great way to start a business. And so the company does quite well for a while and then plateaus and can't figure out why. Vim Vigor cannot figure out what the problem is. So they hire Rochelle, and Rochelle goes out and talks to the consumer for Vim and Vigor. So let's just review. Started by an athlete, created athlete-focused compression socks marketed to athletes. Rochelle goes out, identifies the best consumers, the people who are buying the most socks, who are telling other people about these socks, and discovers that the best consumers are not athletes. They're actually people who spend all day on their feet. They're like nurses. So Rochelle goes back and says, look, your big problem is that you're succeeding despite yourself because you had this theory of what your business is. And you were talking to the audience that you thought your business was built for. But in fact, you've reached a different audience and you're not even engaging them. And that's the flat line. And so Vim and Vigor just changed everything about who they talk to and how they present the brand. And that was what unlocked growth. And I have experienced that myself. I met Rochelle. This isn't an infomercial for Rochelle, though I think she's great. It's really an infomercial for talking to your consumer. That's the point of this. But she did this. She did a process with me years and years ago when I had a history podcast, and I thought that I was talking to history buffs. But what I was really talking to, she discovered, were people who were afraid of change, and they liked the way that I talked about history because it helped them be more comfortable with change. And that gave me the idea to lean more heavily into that subject, which led to this book that I wrote, which led to the newsletter, which led to me being here with SBI. And so I say that if you're looking for something that can really shake things up, you can do nothing better than having deep conversations with your consumer and understanding what the gap is between what you think they want and who you think they are, and what they really want and who they really are. Because I guarantee you, you and everybody else is missing something. You could do it yourself. You could hire somebody like Rochelle, but whatever it is, I want you to double down on really understanding what that gap is, because in that gap is your next opportunity.
Man, I love that. Thank you so much. And it makes a lot more sense because if I focus on the creator economy, they're already tech heads. They're already figuring it out. They're not going to hire somebody who has this experience or somebody to help them along the way, but somebody who has never touched this thing, but they want that high quality. They can be like, hey, I need your help because I have no idea what to do with this stuff.
Yeah, that's right. That's another great point, because I'm talking about talking to your existing audience, but you also want to figure out who should be your audience and what's the gap there. I mean, I'm a great example. I had no idea you exist, but you've built a company that addresses the very specific problem that I have every day, which is that I literally hate my home setup. I hate it. Every time I see Pat and his awesome home setup with that great camera and your lighting, whatever you're doing over there, I'm like, I don't have anything like that. I have this crappy Logitech up here, and I got this thing that I found on Amazon, and I was like, so can somebody fix this for me, please? And I didn't know you exist. And there's got to be a lot more there's got to be a lot more out there like me.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Well, I'll try to be okay here for you, Junaid, and go last and try to live up to the high bar that all these guys have set for us here. And I think my thoughts overlap or maybe echo and amplify some of it, which, still so much when we think about online business is audience focused and marketing, content marketing, top of funnel, podcasting, newsletters. And these are very important and valuable things. But increasingly, at least I find, as I talk to my friends running other online based businesses, as we ourselves, at SPI are thinking critically about our own strategies and how do we shake things up, right? Like, how do we think about where the market's going? There's an opportunity to rethink our kind of time and energy investment into the sales side of our small businesses versus just the marketing side. They are obviously similar disciplines, but they are distinct. They complement each other, but they're different. So potentially in your business, that might lapse into finding different market segments to kind of like Jason's point, different customer types. Or could even reflect back a little bit on Terry in terms of like what sort of lead magnet maybe you create to kind of cultivate and try to capture some new demand interest is essentially partnerships or other forms of sales. Like instead of just trying to do direct to consumer, right, through content marketing avenues, is there an opportunity to think about how can I penetrate into a new market segment, again, kind of like Jason's advice, and who's already there? Right? Is there another company? Is there another brand that's maybe not a competitor, quote unquote, right, but complementary in some way, right? Could you build a relationship in a business to business sense, right? Yeah. And start networking that way rather than just trying to create more content and pursue the more conventional, direct to consumer based approaches, right, for growth.
There's a lot of great conversations in the chat that +1 that leveraging other people's audiences who would benefit. Tina here says, Junaid, I think you should do a joint venture with an aligned industry. Some people were talking about interior designers, says Leslie. So there's a lot of opportunity there to, not just start from scratch and sort of, try to, get people one by one, but one to many, connecting with those who already have those audiences, which is great. I mean, today is a prime example. Here you are, and just by the nature of you being here in front of people, you now have hundreds of people who now know you exist, and it's obvious. And my advice, you mentioned YouTube. I'm big on YouTube, like in terms of like building an audience and the algorithmic growth that can happen there. Love podcasting. I'm still in favor of podcasting. It's my number one platform, but there's just something about the YouTube algorithm that if you unlock it, you can get a lot of eyeballs and include another passive revenue stream, right? With the ad revenue that can come in there. With your industry in particular, it is so visual and it is so before versus after that it would just be like eye candy for people to see. And anybody who has an ounce of, I wish my studio was better, would then be able to discover your stuff and learn about it. And you have this presence about you. You have a way of presenting information, I know, that would be of benefit to those who are searching for this stuff on YouTube. That combined with what Jason said about knowing who it is that is actually your clientele, the people on YouTube who find you may not even be your clientele, but they might know people who are. And at least it'll give you some credibility as well for what I imagine an audience base for you could be, or a client base at least, could be CEOs who are too busy, but they have the money to spend on all the best equipment. They just want somebody to come in and set it up because they are in front of their employees. They are in front of other people. They are making deals on Zoom. Those are where they can get their money back immediately from having a better looking studio. And then what happens? Their friend says, man, how does your Zoom look so good? Immediately, they're just going to say you, right? And this is where what Terry said, the referral program can come into place where, for, $1,000, they get $1,000 if they send somebody over your way to spend, $25,000 with you or something like that, right? And then it just continues to grow and grow and grow. So a lot of good ideas here. So Matt, I'll let you take my question here for not just you, Nate, but everybody watching. When we get a bunch of ideas like we often have at this time of year, how do we know what our first steps are? What do we do? How do we approach this plethora of? There's no lack of information. There's no lack of ideas, and you might just need to get in front of the right people, like today, to get those ideas. But how do you then manage the next steps from there?
Eventually, you need to make your way from the brainstorming phase. In some sense, we're doing that, here with Junaid and everyone, whether you're running your business solo or you have a business partner or something like that, right? Do that as a part of your exercise. I would certainly promote it, and a number of you know this, right? Being the strategic planning guy that I am, like do that on the regular, like do it annually, at least. But then you have to eventually start making choices. You have to go from a brainstorming sort of state of mind into then making of decisions. Terry and I even kind of share a language here. We just recently discovered, and I've brought this even into our team in past summits for SPI, the idea of like divergence and then convergence, right? So divergent thinking is, looking at your business or looking at some sort of landscape and assessing for options, right? And exploring possibilities and trying to be as specific as you can be with that thinking and kind of catalog and write that all down. And that's kind of, part one. Do that, on a dedicated day even, and then sleep on it, come back the next day, and then, kind of switch your headspace, right? And then be like, okay, I've made all of these or created all these choices or opportunities for myself. I now need to whittle them down. I need to maybe clump them together. I need to distill them. I need to then apply, more maybe rigor to then essentially decision making, right? So I have to, arrive at choices, right? So that's a useful sort of like cognitive model. You can Google it and find divergence and convergence sort of stuff out there. But really what it ultimately boils down to is then refocusing on a very, deliberate set of priorities and goals for yourself so that you have then a roadmap to keep you focused. Because so often for any of us, I know this has happened to me so many times with not just even SPI, but some of my other past startup ventures is, you get into doing the work, within the year and things drift. You get really excited. It goes one way and you've forgotten that you had two other goals that you're trying to pursue, right? So it's really, really helpful to take moments, especially like now as we are, about 4 or 5 weeks out from the end of the year, right? And try to create some space for ourselves, to sit down, whether it's, again, just our own heads or if you have a partner or a team, and go through that sort of a process and think about, okay, I've maybe done all of the ideation. I now need to really refocus and check myself even on, some of the headspace stuff, the mindset stuff, what other maybe limiting beliefs are holding me back on some of the choices that I maybe even know I need to make, but I haven't yet, and go through that sort of a process. So as a good segue then, Pat, and a good tee up there, that's actually really the essence of what we've shared a little bit about today, which is our Refocus Challenge. Terry, I will maybe throw it to you to kind of go deeper into how we're going to try to help out with everyone watching here today and help everyone get, in fact, refocused for the new year.
And Junaid, I hope you don't mind sticking around with us and just kind of being part of the group and being a part of the conversation, if that's cool. Also, behind the scenes, I'm getting like a spinning wheel on my system. Nothing is breaking, but I don't want to touch anything in case it breaks. So, Junaid, you're going to stick around. You can add value to, as you always do. But Terry, let's throw it to you. And if we happen to just shut down, knock on wood, we'll come right back on, just for everybody watching. But anyway, Terry, I'm going to go to you. And again, I prayed before we went live that everything would go well, and so far so good. So,
yeah, let's talk about this this refocus challenge, this cleanse, and I'm going to start by talking about dry cleaning, which I know sounds contextually relevant. So let me dive into it. But remember a couple of years ago, I was putting out my dry cleaning to send off. I was like, oh, my nice shirts, all this cool stuff or whatever. And my wife mistakenly thought it was supposed to be donated to Goodwill. So she took all my expensive dry cleaning and just donated it. And you know how it goes. Like you're upset, but you don't want to be verbally upset or visually upset because it's like, that's your wife, that's your partner. And then I sat with it for a minute and I thought to myself, how long would it have taken for me to notice that these clothes weren't there anymore? Because I don't wear dress clothes, right? I don't wear like collared shirts and vests anymore. I just wear black shirts, right? So realizing that just gave me permission to let go of some other things that I was just holding on to for no reason whatsoever. And let's zoom back into your business. Same thing, right? That's why this cleanse is so necessary, because even on mine, I recently did a time audit, which was very scary, by the way, to write down how you're using your time on a weekly basis. And there was this one ongoing project that had frustrated me for the last several months, and I was going to get rid of it in favor of another one. But after doing that audit, I realized the one that was frustrating me actually paid 3 times more per hour than the other project. And after realizing that, I was not as frustrated anymore because I was like, hey, this actually pays pretty well, right? So just taking the time to zoom out sometimes and reassess what you're doing is extremely valuable, right? And at the same time, we're talking about refocusing and going through a cleanse. We talked earlier about your zone of genius. And I think it's very important to stay with that, or at least, focus on it initially. But that can also lead to identity foreclosure when you feel like this is who I am, this is who I'm always going to be. So I think this opportunity to refocus and have this cleanse gives you an opportunity to perhaps do an identity shift, not staying stuck in the same thing if you're not happy with it, right? I like to tell the parable of this construction worker who comes in every day complaining about his peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Every day, peanut butter and jelly. Can't believe it. Peanut butter and jelly every day. And then finally, one of his coworkers says, well, why don't you ask your old lady to make something else? And he's like, what do you mean? I make my own lunch. So right now, if you're a little frustrated with the way your business is going, if you're getting bored, if you're getting just like anxious, maybe you need to change what you're having for lunch. And that's what this challenge is all about. But it starts with a very honest assessment of who you are and where you want to be. And there's this really great book by Dr. Ben Hardy called Be Your Future Self Now that I think is a great cue that we can use to say, okay, well, who do I want to ascend to? And when I think about my future self, it's very clear. But then you can also learn from your future self and saying, okay, well, here's what I want to be. What would that person be doing right now to get to that outcome, right? So that's part of the cleanse as well, getting clear on who you want to be, and then removing some of those bad habits, some of those bad tactics, whatever it may be, to get you there as well, right? So it's not going to be easy. It's going to be challenging, but there's a lot of clarity on the other side. And you also make a lot more money if that's your desired outcome, because not everyone wants to be filthy rich, right? You don't want to be miserably rich. So maybe during this cleanse, you're like, you know what? I want to focus on my family more. I want to be better at helping my kids do their homework. I want to exercise more. So you might realize you don't have to do more to be more. And as a result of that, you'll be even more fulfilled. So I'm really excited for this because it's something I do every year. Like I said, what do I want to do? Become, experience, learn, and sacrifice. That part is so important, right? But just like me not wanting to let go of these shirts that I never wear, there's probably some stuff that you are hanging on to right now that's holding you back. And that's what we want to sacrifice, right? That's what we want to move forward with. So I'm really excited to lead you on this, because not only will you get the guidance to do so, but if you stick around in pro, then you obviously get the accountability to put this stuff in action as well, right? Because that's the challenge. It's not like everyone has these New Year's resolutions, right? Oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, so on and so forth. The majority of people give up by the end of January because they don't have accountability, right? And there's this great study from the American Society of Training and Development that if you have a goal and meet with an accountability partner just once a week, your chance of success goes up by 95%. 95%. Right? All you have to do, have this lofty goal, cool. I mean, make sure you tether your thoughts to reality, but just bake in some accountability and you're much more likely to achieve it. So that's what this cleanse is all about. That's what SPI Pro is all about. And I hope to see you in there.
Well, that's great, Terry. The cleanse actually will be guided by Terry inside of SPI Pro on December 6th, I believe, which is just happens to be me and Matt's birthday. So that'll be a fun birthday event for sure. Like, honestly, I'm going to need that as well. And we already have a lot of people excited in Pro to do that. And you're welcome to sign up to Pro as well if you go to spipro.com. Pro is for our established business owners, those who aren't just getting started. We do have programs for that as well through our All Access Pass. And that is something that actually comes with Pro as well, in case you want access to our full course library and everything from YouTube from scratch to how to do webinars, courses, podcasting, etc. But the more strategic level of planning and those kinds of related items and the accountability that comes with that in our community is at SPI Pro. So be sure to apply. We need a couple days to then read through those applications, and then you can get in by the time that Terry has the cleanse workshop happening. However, for those watching now, there are still things that we can do now to start thinking about that. And I think one of those things is sort of a realignment of like, okay, well, who do we want to be in 2024? What are those things that we want to strive for? And, the exercise that Matt taught me a while back was something called a stop, start, continue exercise. And that was something that was very, very helpful. I continue to run that exercise myself to learn what I need to stop doing to do and accomplish the goals that I want to in 2024. What should I continue doing? What worked well this year? I think that's also another thing that before we think about 2024, let's rethink about 2023. What did we do well? Junaid, I'm going to cue you up in just a minute because I want you to talk about the things that you did well this past year, because I think we need to celebrate a lot of that as well. And then, of course, what should we start doing that maybe we aren't yet? So, Matt, sorry to overtake here. I just had that thought. And would love to get Junaid involved in this as well. And so part of cleaning is knowing where you're coming from and also, being proud of the things that you've done. So Junaid, I'd love to ask you real quick here, in 2023, what were some of the big accomplishments that you've had? I know we here at SPI know a lot of them because you share them inside of Pro, but maybe for everybody else watching who can be inspired by that, tell me about your 2023 really quick, and maybe even go into a little bit of 2024 and what you hope to cleanse into. Might be muted.
Yeah, mute myself.
Someone blew his nose.
Thank you so much. That's a really great question. And what really worked, and it's been like Terry mentioned, you got to have that weekly or monthly accountability. And luckily for myself being the pro, we have the weekly mastermind BlackBerry that has been keep going strong since the beginning and keeping me, accountable to see, hey, what's working, what can we evaluate, and what can I do better. So what I've been doing better is I've been talking to a lot of guests on the pre-discovery call to make sure that they look good, sound good, and they're framed right. So then when they are on the podcast, they look good on the recording. So I've been doing those one-on-one calls for the past 6 months. And the recent change that I've done is I was like, hey, instead of talking to one-on-one and telling them the exact same thing, what if I do group calls? So starting this week, I'm going to be doing group calls, bringing in 5-6 people at the same time and telling them, hey, this is how I run my podcast. This is what you're going to be sharing. And so that's going to be something that, again, if I hadn't done it, if I hadn't seen what wasn't working and how can I make it better, I wouldn't be making those changes. The other thing that had been working and are doing better is that I am getting connected to more and more podcast agencies, podcast networks. I think Terry mentioned, talking to B2B, or maybe Jason, talking to B2B so that you're getting in front of more people. And that's something that I shifted. So instead of focusing on single people, to focus on, hey, let me come help you. I'm talking to podcast guests or podcast hosts and podcast networks and podcast agencies who already have a bunch of guests, who already have a bunch of hosts working with them, and they understand the power of podcasting, power of video. And as we now move toward the video podcasting, how can I make them look good and sound good on video? So
Nice, man.
been a really good growth for sure.
It's been awesome to follow your journey. I think that's one of the things about Pro I didn't realize was going to happen, was just we get to follow along all of your journeys and sort of support you in that way, which is great. And now we have Terry and Jason on board to support you inside of Pro in that manner as well. Matt, I think that you worked on something that is going to be really helpful for people that maybe you want to mention really quick.
Perfect timing. Yeah. So with this Refocus challenge, the live, if you will, aspect of this is indeed happening in the community. And to be very specific, if you're not yet a member and this potentially sounds valuable and exciting for you, we ask that you apply by next Monday, December the 4th, because the team needs a couple of days to go through some application review. We do have an application to join Pro. And then Terry's kickoff with that, again, starts on our birthday next week, Pat and me, next Wednesday, December the 6th. So that's the deadline if you want to get in and join us through the live part. But if not, totally cool. We do have then this workbook, this handy dandy workbook that I've put together to guide us through this Refocus challenge. And we are giving that out for free. We want to try to help. You can go through it on your own. It's very useful. All of us are going to do it actually together, during the live challenge as well, inside the community, but we're giving that out to everybody. A link for that will come out in email for all of you that are registered for today's event, whether you're watching it live or maybe on a replay. I will verbalize the link now. I know, Pat, your computer is a little bit on the fritz, so I don't know if we can get a graphic up with the link.
Won't be able to, but I'll link to it in the chat as well for everybody.
Link to it in the chat. Perfect. Yep. It's smartpassiveincome.com/refocus-workbook. So smartpassiveincome.com/refocus-workbook. That'll take you to the a Google document, the handy dandy workbook that I've created. It is significant. It's exciting. It is very intentional. Very much. We all hope that you like it. And when you go to that link, you'll get a prompt to copy that document for yourself into your own Google Drive, so that you have it and can begin to use it.
Very nice. Well done, Matt. Thanks for that. And again, smartpassiveincome.com/refocus-workbook. Sandy and I link to it in the chat. I'll put it in the description for everybody watching the replay. And like Matt said, we'll send an email out to everybody who is registered for this event. So we have about 7 minutes left. Matt, where do you want to go from here?
Yeah, I was going to do just some final thoughts and maybe hopes and aspirations for next year for the community. Junaid, again, thank you so much for coming in and sitting in the hot seat. Hopefully we didn't make it too hot or uncomfortable for you. But yeah, maybe just a parting shot, a parting thought for us here as we kind of wrap up today.
Well, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to come sit on the hot seat. I mean, it's really interesting. Think about cooking food. You have to literally put it in a hot pot. The only way to get the flavor out is by cooking it. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to get the flavors out of this little business over here. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome. Thank you. I'll just go in my little order of the screen. Jason, if you want to swing next, a parting thought for all of us here.
Sure. So first of all, always great to talk to you all, Junaid. Such a pleasure to meet. And I hope to see a whole bunch of you who are in the chat in SPI Pro. I will just share, I had mentioned the newsletter. I was working on it today, and I was sharing a way in which I have found useful to lower my level of anxiety about the number of things that I have to do. I think we're all here on this chat today because we all love the work that we do. We want to do more. We want to achieve more goals. And that also can be incredibly overwhelming because there's just so much to do. And you end up feeling like you have to be glued to your seat, constantly working because there's never enough time to do everything. And I just did it to myself because I added this premium newsletter, which means that I'm now writing 2 a week. And I'm thinking, when do I have the time to do this? And I started to realize that one of the things that is most overwhelming about having too much work is that we think of it as one large mass. It's just a mass of work. And when you don't separate it out into its component parts, when you just let yourself be overwhelmed by work, it feels like an incomprehensible amount of things to do without enough time to do it. And the only way that you can feel better is to anchor yourself to the chair and just chip away. And I realized something, which is there's another way to think about it, which is and this is I wrote this. I'll expand upon it in the newsletter, which is it doesn't have to happen now. Like whatever you're thinking that you have to, it doesn't have to happen now. You just need to know when it happens. And for me, what that meant was I started to list out just on a weekly basis, what literally do I need to produce every week? What are the big things that need my time and my energy? And then when does that happen? Monday from 9 to 10, is that when I can tackle one task? Tuesday from 2 to 3, is that when I can tackle another? I start to assign out the things that I need. And in doing so, I take this large, incomprehensible mass and I break it up into these component parts and I distribute them across time so that I always feel like the things are getting done. And I know when they'll get done. And then very importantly, that allows me to step away and to recharge and to do the other things that we all want to do, because none of us love to work just to love to work. We love to work because of the things that it allows us. It gives us new opportunities. It gives us resources to have experiences, whatever it is. So it doesn't have to happen now. You just have to know when.
That's strong. I love that. Terry, why don't you go next?
Yeah, I'll build off what Jason was saying in regards to feeling so busy, like you always have to be doing something. And I'm the same way. I mean, I think we both, Jason, we both lean towards being a bit more anxious, like just want to get things done all the time very quickly.
Yeah.
But one thing I realized is if being busy was the path to success, I'd be a lot more successful right now. I'd have a nice studio like Junaid, right? So I realized that's not the path. And then I read this book, 10x is easier than 2x, which was really transformational. I thought it was amazing. And this makes you realize that, again, you don't have to do more to be more, but the moves you make, they have to be power moves. And that's what I say, power moves only. So I'll give you an example. One of my goals is to build my speaking business this next year. And sure, I could reach out to a bunch of event planners and say, hey, I'm amazing. Here's my reel, so on and so forth. Put me on stage. That's one thing I could do. It's going to take time. Or I can reach out to speakers bureaus that the event planners go to hire speakers and say, you should represent me and pitch me often. Here's why, right? So it's the same thing. I'm sending an email, but one email is going to an individual who might respond, might say yes. The other one's going to a speakers bureau that if they respond and say yes, I'm in front of all these other people, right? So again, going back to 10x is easier than 2x, you're still writing a freaking email, right? You're just making a power move as opposed to being more passive. So that's what I encourage everyone to think about. And what you have to do, though, is you have to raise your standards, too. It's not just the approach you're taking, it's the standards, right? It's the amount you'll pay or you'll charge. It's where you'll show up. It's who you'll serve. So if you can do that, right, so we can break out of the identity for closure we talked about earlier and move towards an identity shift where you actually are more moving towards your future self, that's how you really do make 2024 transformational. And like I said, hope to see you in that cleanse, so I can help you out with that as well.
Well said,
I love
Terry.
that. Pat, I'll give you the last word. My quick thing, and I don't have the book with me, so big +1, Terry, to the book you just mentioned, 10x is greater than 2x. Thinking in Bets was going to be my reference, a great book by Andy Duke. And it's really about, who's a world champion poker player, by the way, hence the name of the book. And thinking in terms of strategy, Junaid, even like the essence of your question about shaking things up, right? Think about, different things you can do as bets and make as good of bets as you can and test and evaluate those things. But I think one of the most important and useful little things that's kind of built into this notion of bets is that there is an aspect of luck, good or bad, and that helps to create even a barrier or a buffer zone, I should say, from like this idea of failure. If a bet doesn't go right, it doesn't mean it wasn't the wrong bet to take. Sometimes like you can play a hand of cards perfectly and it still doesn't go well, right? Like you did everything right, you made the right bet and it still didn't work. So as we think about even, shaking things up for next year and finding, more focus and making some power moves, like Terry said, sometimes still don't work out. And that's permission to be like, let's learn from that and let's move on. And it wasn't necessarily that we did something wrong. Well, we made the right bet. Let's make the next one.
Love that. I need to pick up that book too. There's been a lot of good book recommendations here for sure. And I do want to +1, 10x is easier than 2x. That's amazing. And double shout out to Ben Hardy today, actually, on the chat. For me, and to finish up, because I know we're at the top of the hour, and thank you all again for being here. The chat's been amazingly active, and just thank you all for a lot of you are already at the pro application filling that out, which is great. spipro.com. When we consider 2024, the next year, doing new things, taking those bold actions, power moves, like Terry said, it's often going to put us in a position to feel that imposter syndrome that always shows up when we're trying something new. I wrote about this in a recent newsletter, and I just want to read a bit of it to finish up here, because I think this is going to be really important, because unless you figure out what's going on up here, then no strategies are going to matter, right? Imposter syndrome often hits hardest when you are on the verge of growth, right? It's a sign that you're pushing boundaries. It's a sign that you're stepping out of your comfort zone, which is where all the awesome happens. And that discomfort, it's not a signal that you're doing something wrong. Rather, it's evidence that you are challenging your own status quo. So if you're trying to grow and you're feeling that, good, right? And what helps us get through that, one of those things is accountability, it's community, it's hearing the voices of others, which is why we are so grateful that we've been in the position to now create SPI Pro and our All Access Pass, because that's where the community exists. Our business at SPI is now community. It's you, and it's us, and it's Terry, and it's Jason, the EIRs coming into the program. I'm just so excited for the future, your future, our future. And again, couldn't be more grateful that you were here today with us. So thank you to Matt and Jason and Terry, and of course, Junaid for being here, all of you in the chat, for YouTube, and my system and computer for not shutting down in the middle of the stream as well. And we'll leave it at that. Anything else, Matt, left to say?
No, you nailed it. Thanks everyone for showing up, and hope to see you inside the community.
Absolutely.
Right. Thanks, everybody. Now, how am I going to shut this thing off if I can't get to this to the thing?
It's the endless
here's where it all goes boom.
Yeah. I need to wait. Okay, there it is. I just waved on the stream, so I'm going to hit end stream on YouTube, and then we'll go from there. So end stream. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you.
All right.